I would like, if I may, to take you on a strange journey.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Real Estate Realities with the Rebel Broker. My name's Robert Whitelaw, and I am the Rebel Broker. Licensed real estate broker in the state of California, member of the National Association of Realtors. But please, don't hold that against me. Welcome to it. Today is Monday, August 8th, 2016. Welcome to a new week. Hope you all are ready to take it on. Hope you had a great weekend. I had a pretty good weekend. Spent it with my boys mostly. And you know, I took the weekend off from looking at real estate, and I ended up playing computer games with my sons mostly. You got to do that every once in a while. So we were playing this thing called Overwatch. It makes you realize as you get older, those reflexes aren't quite up to all the young folks. But I held my own. I did my best. So we're going to jump into today, but as always, I like to give you a heads up on how best to get in contact with me. Please head on over to www.therebelbroker.com. If you'd like to get in touch, there's a link there titled in the upper right-hand corner, Contact the Rebel Broker. Go ahead and click that. Feel free to send along any ideas, suggestions, observations, or questions that you might have, and I will be happy to answer them, or at least point you in the right direction if I don't know the right answer to your question. And today, I wanted to, and the other thing I like to remind everyone is I'm still doing the audience survey. So at the very tippy top of the website, there is a red button titled Take the Survey to Help the Show. Click it, answer the 5 to 7 questions that are there on the survey, and you would be doing me a great service. It helps me to understand the makeup of the audience and be able to move forward with that information. So, and all of that is tied together with just making the show better in the long run. And we all want that, right? Just make the show better. Okay, folks, I came across an article the other day, and I wasn't so sure I was going to jump on it. It's titled 10 Things to Buy for Your Home at Target and a Few Things Not to. And I thought it would be good to run through it more as a source for potential staging. When you do the math on staging, sometimes you can make do with things that you have, you like big stuff, beds. And here's the other thing. You don't even need to leave real beds when you stage. I know folks who have taken, those interesting little zipper plastic containers that new blankets come in? A lot of stagers will fill those up with newspaper, zip them closed, and use 6 of those to represent a bed, and they'll just put a bedspread over it. So you can get creative with what, quote unquote, is a bed. The only downside is going to be if someone decides to sit on the bed thinking it's a bed, and it's that stuff instead, because you just fall right through it, which has happened to me before, so something to be aware of. But if you've got beds, you can obviously just leave a bed in there. But one thing that folks always talk about is how up-to-date and new and fresh a staged home looks. And I'm not going to suggest that you need to go through. We've talked about staging before. If you missed those shows, you can go back in the archives and see if you can track those down. Of course, we'll talk about the generalities of staging again at some point. But this is more, I think, interesting information from the standpoint of if you didn't want to spend a huge pile of money and you wanted some pieces to include in a staged home, you wanted to sort of get that popular look that's happening right now, which is really what you're shooting for. Whatever is sort of catching people's eye right now, that's sort of the vibe you want to put into a home when you're trying to stage it. And Target is a great place to do it. So we're going to go ahead and run through this list and maybe chat a little bit about each item and talk about the part that it can play in your staging strategy. Let's see. So let's go with their first one. New trends. Target is a great place to adopt a new trend without a big spend or start easing into a new look. So they tend to have things that are coordinated. So, for instance, there's a photo here in this article, and I'll absolutely include a link to this in the show notes for today's show if you'd like to go take a look at that. One great thing about Target is across multiple design areas, you'll find palettes that work together, right? So, the example they give is a gold-toned pillow, tchotchke, vase, and piece of furniture. And this is a great way to sort of get that coordination going on. And it doesn't mean you need to do everything, right? It doesn't mean you need to buy a couch. It just means that you buy a few things that sort of tie it all together. And frequently what you're going to find is that the folks that are there can help you pick these things. Now, don't forget to check end caps when you're in the home-related sections. This is where you'll find many of their clearance items. So pillows, decorative pillows, those types of things are things that you can pick up at a bargain, and they tend to still be hip, right, if you want something to kind of throw accents out. Now, how important is this to staging? It's really going to depend on what's going on overall with your home. If you are someone who has moved everything out of your home, now this would be a more ideal situation. The worst situation is the person who has tons and tons of stuff in their home and lots of tchotchkes and can't get them out of the house. I always strongly suggest that the Velvet Elvis needs to get packed. The porcelain Marilyn Monroe needs to get packed. The extreme collection of Tinkerbell memorabilia gets packed. All of that stuff needs to get packed. Not because people hate Disneyland, not because people hate Tinkerbell, and not because people hate Elvis, but because you're looking to appeal to the largest number of people. So why would you want to alienate someone who may, for whatever reason, really not like the King of Rock and Roll or Marilyn Monroe? So you're trying to keep that initial emotional response as positive as possible. So you want to try to keep things neutral, but familiar in that things that they associate with being attractive and hip, which is kind of the point here. And this can literally be as simple as leaving your couch, leaving your lazy boy chair in there, but throwing a few accent pieces over it. Now, the next one they bring up here, and I think this is huge, and I think a lot of people underestimate how good this makes a room look, and that's window treatments. Target has got tons of colors, patterns, textures, and it's amazing how you can get something going for just $10 a panel. And that's their regular price. So if you go in there and you are looking for the deals, the clearance deals, this is a great chance for you to get some window treatments on the property that will make it more attractive. Now, the question becomes, I don't have any window treatments on any of my windows at all. Why would I want to do that for a room that I'm not planning to live in anymore? I'm looking to sell my home. It is what it is, which is window dressing, and it simply is something to make the room look more attractive. If you've got a relatively sparse room, it just simply makes it look that much more attractive. And I think that's underestimated. Now, I don't worry about it as much in bedrooms, but if you have living rooms, family rooms, dining rooms, kitchens, and even bathrooms that don't really have a problem in terms of window coverings, they have window treatments, but if the window treatments are really in bad shape, that's a problem I've had. And I tend to see this most common or really out of date. I hate to admit it, but my bathroom suffers from this. I have very out-of-date window treatments in my master bathroom. So if I was going to sell my place, and as you all know, that is an idea that's been bouncing around my head each time I see what the current property values are estimated to be for my property, I would absolutely go through and change some of the window treatments, and I would update some of them in some rooms. And the great thing about them is they look good when they're open, but then they also serve a purpose when they're closed, right? They're blocking out light. So, and the other thing is, these are all things you can take with you. So let's say that you are someone who's moving. Typically when you're at that point, you've got an idea of where you're going, or you've got an idea of what you want when you get there. If you want to keep what you're doing, let's say these are all items you want to put into your new home. Simply make mention. Now, window treatments are things you typically want to call out in the listing as things that are not included if you want to keep them. So if you do want to keep them and you're deciding not to go cheap just for the sake of staging, but you're actually going to buy because you want to use them in your new home, then use them here first and then take them with you to the new home. And you'll get the benefit of having it enhance the attractiveness of the home you're trying to sell, and then get to use it once that place gets sold. Serving pieces, and this is a weird one. Do I agree with this one? I'm not 100% on board with this, but if you've got a vacant property, I think a few items out, just a functional items, I think are nice. If you've got a big dining room table or something like that with nothing on it, I think having a nice, attractive serving piece that you buy for how it looks, not for how useful it necessarily is. I think those go away towards enhancing the appeal of the room that it's in. Primarily dining rooms. I think kitchens also benefit from this. But again, it's at this point you're just worried about the aesthetics of it. How does it look? Rugs are next on the list. I frequently disagree with stagers relating to rugs. A lot of them will tell me that it very much helps to define a space, particularly if you're talking about a living room and it's a hardwood floor or some other type of material that isn't already carpeting. And I've had some stagers even suggest putting down area rugs on top of carpeting. I'll be honest, I don't think there's any huge value in doing that in terms of buying a rug specifically for staging. If you really want to put a rug down, let's say you've got if you've got beautiful hardwood floors, show those babies off. I think that is far more attractive than an area rug. That's kind of my bias. And if I'm showing a home and I see beautiful hardwood floors, I'm going to be pointing that out. I'm going to be making sure folks are aware of that. Now, bedding. This is an interesting one simply for the fact that if you're staging your home, if you're going to leave beds in there, I strongly suggest getting some sort of a comforter or cover and put it on there to make it pretty. If you're still sporting really old stuff, think of it as an upgrade to your stuff and simply put it on the bed and let it be there and let it look good. Or if you're faking a bed, using a comforter is the best way to go. And just to give the room context so people can see exactly what's going on with a room. So, and what I mean by that is a lot of times you're going to find that folks have to be clearly communicated to what the purpose of a room is. So if they walk into a room and they're wondering in their head, this seems really too small. What kind of bed would fit in here? You answer those questions by giving it the context of having a bed in there, since that's the question they're trying to answer. And a great way to do that is to also make it look attractive, and you want to make it look functional. So if you're staging from the standpoint of a empty room and you're trying to stage it, go with a bed in the room and go with one night table and a very small dresser to define that area, if that's what you have. If you don't have a dresser, just don't put a dresser in there at all. You're kind of going for just communicating the context of the room and giving it some scale by having some items in there that folks can judge for themselves. Knickknacks. This is another one that I'm not real sure of because we go to so much trouble to get our sellers to get the knickknacks out of their house. But so why would you want to put knickknacks back in your house? Well, believe it or not, it's all about the impression you're trying to give, right? You've probably gone into plenty of kitchens where there's two glasses of wine, there's a bottle of wine, there's a bottle opener, a corkscrew sitting there, maybe a rolled up napkin and fake bread. So you're trying to sell a lifestyle. You're trying to sell the best possible imagining of what's going to happen in that space, right? So to that extent, I'm fine with knickknacks, but I find that a lot of stagers go nuts with those humongous vases with reeds sticking out and all this other kind of stuff that I'm just not sure is necessary. And again, these are techniques that are most likely going to be something you're going to use. For some of these suggestions, even if you're leaving your stuff in there. But if most of your things are still in the home, normally you're not going to have to go through the knick-knack hoop here. It's relatively easy to create that look with things you've already got in the house. One thing that I find is effective is making one room look like a child's room, even if there are no children in the house. So this is something that if you've got an opportunity to do it, and there are good options for kid-style knickknacks, right? Now, that doesn't mean you're populating the room with toys. It means you're trying to make it look like a kid-style room. And a great way to do that is to just get a few sort of almost novelty-style that you can seed the room with. So, and go with a theme. So, examples I've seen in the past are like a nautical theme. So you got a little sailboat or something, those types of things. Maybe a couple little sailboat toys, maybe a sailboat lamp, maybe it's race cars, maybe it's superheroes, whatever. And you may even have family that have these items. But remember, you're going again for sparse. You're not going for what a kid really does to their room. You're going for that idealized version. You're going for that what would you call it? I guess Leave It to Beaver version of a kid's room, because you're trying to show the absolute aspirational version, right? What would be the perfect type of setup? Next, temporary wallpaper. This is an interesting one, and one that is relatively inexpensive. And if you really want to sort of create a feel in a room, something you can absolutely do. I think this would be a step above and beyond. This isn't something I would strongly suggest. Next is painting. And if you're going to paint, and I strongly suggest you paint at least some rooms. Pick the rooms that are most challenged, or the areas that are most challenged when you're staging. And when you do it, you don't need to go out and purchase the super high quality paint. Target has really good prices on paint. And just by doing this, you're going to touch up those areas that needed touching up, and you're going to give that home the feeling of that remodeled smell, right? It's like the new car smell, but it's the paint smell, which is one that folks tend to love because it shows that there's been some work done on the property. Now, next is furniture, and the folks that, if you'll remember, I've referred to that 2-bedroom condo I sold a couple of months ago. Now, we did a little bit of this with that one because and this is a strategy that I suggest. If you have a home that has weird little alcoves or weird little places, or let's say your home has a disadvantage. Now, in this case, our disadvantage was that we had a 2-bedroom property, and we really, really wanted folks who might come over and look at it to see that they could get 3-bedroom functionality out of it, at least a segment of them. So what we needed to do was create a space that they could visualize as a office space, a place where they could sit and do work. And so we created 2 of those. And we did it using Target furniture, for instance. It just happens to be coincidentally that that's what they used. And they bought a table and a couple of little stools and created one in the kitchen area, which had this weird little alcove that you could stick shelves there. You could do whatever you wanted. But in this case, we wanted it to look like they could use it as a work area. And then a second place we did it was in one of the master closets upstairs, where we created sort of a workspace area that would give them, at least plant the seed that if they wanted privacy and not in the kitchen and they wanted an office space, they could do it there. There was just ample closet space in the master, so that was an area where we could do it. Absolutely one of the items that the folks who ended up buying it brought up as something that they thought was a good thing. And the great thing is you can usually do something like this for under $250. Normally, you can get the table, get a couple of the chairs, or just one chair, and you've done it for less than $150 to $200. So and I think that's great. And giving it context can hold a lot of value in terms of allaying people's fears. Again, it's all about establishing context and letting people get an idea of what they can use the space for. But here's the thing, and don't do it just for the sake of doing it. Do it to actually address a specific problem or answer a specific question. All right, we're going to move on to the next items, which are things not to buy at Target, and we'll cover that in a minute, so don't go away.
Are you ready to jump in and start your search for your first investment property? Maybe you've decided that it's time to own your own home, or maybe you're ready to sell your home and move on to something new. No matter what your goal is, the Rebel Broker can help. That's right. Aside from hosting this show, I am also the owner, broker of Whitelaw & Sons Real Estate Services right here in Silicon Valley. With over 25 years experience serving Silicon Valley, Morgan Hill, San Martin, and Gilroy, I or one of my great agents can help you achieve your goals in real estate. So if you're ready to look into taking that next step towards achieving your real estate goals, point your browser at www.soldbyrobert.com. That's www.soldbyrobert.com and get in touch. Let me show you how I will earn your business and your respect. Again, that's www.soldbyrobert.com, or you can call me at 408-852-0525. California Bureau of Real Estate ID 00984-909.
Welcome back, everyone. We're going down the list of things to buy, not to buy at Target. This list is a little bit, I'm having to adapt it a little bit. They're making suggestions on different things to buy, and they're doing a buy, don't buy list of things. And I think what we need to do is draw a line here. We need to draw a line between things that we would use simply as a prop and things that we would actually incorporate into our lives after the sale. So we've already run down a general list of the things to buy, and that included number one was new trends. If you want to go and get stuff that's hip, but you don't want, or at least that's very popular, and you don't want to pay top dollar for it, Target's a great place to go. Window treatments, another fantastic place to go, and we talked about where you'd want to use that in the process of staging a home. Serving pieces. If you're buying for yourself, that's one thing. Accent pieces for staging, also a great opportunity there for you as well. Rugs, they sell a bunch of them. For staging, I don't think it's such a big deal. I don't think area rugs make a lot of sense for staging. If you want one for your own personal setup, great. Bedding, talked about that and the importance of giving context to bedrooms. Knickknacks. Knickknacks tend to be not the thing you want to add to a home for staging, but you want to set a tone in a room. And we talked about the example of the wine glasses and wine bottles out and that kind of stuff. And then we also talked about going with a theme in a bedroom, portraying a room in a way that determines, that also that communicates who's in it. So a child's bedroom, a master bedroom, or a master suite for the husband and wife, and then for the kid. We talked about temporary wallpaper, which I don't think really applies to staging, except in maybe very rare situations where you want to specifically give a room sort of an update, but may be great for you in terms of your own decorating. Then we talked about paint, a little bit about furniture. All great things. Now let's hit the list of what not to buy. It's a relatively short list, but we'll talk about other places to go. Now, what not to buy? Non-sale throw pillows. Throw pillows are a great thing to get if you're trying to add accent pieces to a staging environment. However, the suggestion that these folks make is that you're going to get better choices at better prices at Home Goods. Now, Home Goods is another store that's got locations all over the country. Here in the Bay Area, I know within a drive of my house, there are at least 3 or 4 different Home Goods stores. And I always suggest doing this shopping in person. I find that we get less than happy results with folks who do these things online and try to get a better deal that way. Odds are you're going to be able to get it for a much better price at Home Goods, so there's really no point in going that direction. Bed pillows. At a very cheap price, they're tempting. But here, let me suggest this. If you're doing it just for the staging, if that's the only purpose that these are going to serve, and then you're never going to use them again, I don't know why you would do that. But they're only about, when they're at their cheapest at a place like Target, they're only $4 a go. But they're horrible pillows. You wouldn't want to sleep on them. But they're fine if you're just trying to simulate a pillow on a bed. Or the other way you could go is to simply not buy a pillow, buy pillow cases and shove stuff into the pillowcase. That's something I have done, and I've done it with loose material. I've done it with paper. So it's really just a question of creating something that looks the part rather than actually getting it. If you're getting a pillow actually for your very own head, don't buy it there. Spend more money on your pillow. Your head's worth more than that. Next are candles. Candles are super interesting because they absolutely play a part in getting your home sold. And I know that sounds nuts, and it's a goofy thing, but smells are so huge when it comes to selling your home. We've talked about this before in a lot of different ways in the context of painting your home, which we mentioned already. We've talked about it in terms of the smell of new carpeting. whether you like it or not, and maybe when you're one of those people who absolutely is a pragmatist, and when you go into a house, you don't care how it smells because you know, unless it's a smell you can't get rid of, you can deal with that. Those are all manageable things, right? And so it doesn't stop you from potentially wanting to buy a property. You just recognize I'm going to need to get rid of all the carpeting, all the padding, everything. Wherever the smells are coming from, I'm going to have to deal with it. So you move on from that standpoint. However, believe it or not, the vast majority of people are not that way. I've been doing this long enough to realize that, a lot of these weird little psychological maneuverings actually have an effect on how attractive or how attracted to a property people are. And candles can play a big part in that. So the suggestion that I make is for folks to get candles. I will tend to burn them at open houses unless the home already has a new paint smell or new carpet smell. You can get, and that's what the thing they're saying here is, do not buy your candles from Target. I would agree. The prices at Target are not that great, but I'm also one of those idiots that buys candles at Pier 1. So I am spending way too much money on my candles when I go and buy them. The suggestion that's made here is to go to IKEA to purchase candles. But you're going to want scented candles. Now, and you can go with the most common. Lavender is one of the most common scented ones, and it's one of the ones people like to use. It's supposed to be a calming and all this other kind of wonderful stuff. I'm not sure how much I buy into that, but I do recognize that it's a pleasant smell, and it's one that folks tend to enjoy. I've never had anyone get upset about a smell, because you could then offer up the suggestion, well, what if it's a smell folks don't like? And that's absolutely true. But here's the other thing. If you want to go online and do a little shopping, I'm going to suggest that you head on over to sites like, or even Amazon. I'm not sure if these guys sell their stuff on Amazon. I'm almost sure they do, because I think I've ordered it there. Yankee Candle makes a cookie scented candle. You'll also find, I think, a more affordable version at stinkycandlecompany.com. I will be happy to include a link to those two sites so that you can check it out for yourself. But believe it or not, that's absolutely, I would bet that probably 80% of the sales of cookie scented candles is for real estate agents who are doing open houses. Now, the great thing about these candles is they're relatively self-contained, and you can and burn them without worrying about there being a problem of wax getting all around, because they're in a jar, right? They're not just one of those freestanding pillar-style candles. So get one of these. You're going to sell your house. Go ahead and buy one. Buy yourself a chocolate chip cookie, or they've got one called, I'm looking at the site right now. They've got a ginger spice cookie. They've got a Girl Scout cookies, chocolate peanut butter, and iced cookie. That's the good folks over at Yankee Candle. And then the Stinky Candle Company actually has a chocolate chip cookie candle for $9.99. You can go ahead and buy that and light that sucker up when you know there's going to be an open house. Let's say someone has called, not an open house, but let's say you are the owner of the home. You've been called and you know someone's going to come and look at the home. Light that sucker up, put it on your cooktop at the back, not on a burner, but, on the cooktop, and just let it burn and let it sit there and do its thing. And it'll have a wonderful smell. And that's one of the smells that are supposedly the ones that really just hypnotize buyers. It's cookies, new carpet smell, and new paint smell. So there you go. I think lavender and everything else would work just as well. Excuse me. And the Stinky Candle Company actually has a lot of very cool smells that you may want to explore. Cotton candy, lemons, fast food, and wine flavored candles. So feel free to check those out. I will, as I said, include a link to these so that you can take advantage of this yourself. So I hope that's been helpful. We've kind of put a little bit of the rubber to the road here. Instead of just talking sort of loosely about what goes on with staging, I've tried to give you some places to go to satisfy your needs in terms of getting staging things going. And you can really use this however you want in terms of, or you can go however you want in terms of acquiring the things that you think will be a good staging environment for you. But just remember, have someone come in and do a bid on staging, because the goal in doing it the way I'm suggesting now is that you're going to save yourself a ton of money. I have seen staging happen for, I think the cheapest staging I've ever seen in terms of a professional stager coming in and doing it, and this was quite a few years ago, was about $1,800 for a relatively small house. For higher end homes, I've seen staging go for as much as $3,000 to $5,000. That's the average. If you go out and do some Googling on staging, at least in my area, it's $3,000 to $5,000, and I've seen folks pay quite a bit more. And there's usually a big push for it, and with a little plan. And so imagine if instead of spending that $3,000 to $5,000 on something where I think you would show a good result because of it, you tend to sell your home faster, you tend to sell it for more when a home is staged. But if you can put it together, and see if you can do this as well. Let's say you don't feel like you have any staging skill. You can hire a stager to come in. Usually they're charging anywhere from $150 to $200 an hour for their time, but you can have them come in and write out what they would do to stage the home, and they'll tell you what they'd charge. Then figure out on your own time what it would take for you to do what they suggest, but get the items. Because there's two ways you can go after the staging is done. You can keep the stuff and put it in your new house, or you can put an ad in the paper and sell it all. You might even call up that stager and say, what would you pay me for just all this stuff? So in the end, you come out on top. You've invested a little bit of sweat equity on your own part to do it yourself, but you've also saved yourself probably thousands of dollars by staging in the manner that we've described here in terms of going to these various places and handling it that way instead. So, and one other interesting thing, you can often find inflatable beds, and those work great. So let's say you're someone who maybe is in the market for an inflatable bed for when a guest comes around. Go ahead and buy one, inflate that bad boy, put a bedspread on top of it, and there you go. And they sell them in the typical bed sizes. So that way it's easier for you. And don't get the ones that sit low to the ground. And if you do get one that sits low to the ground, put some boxes underneath it to give it a little altitude. But you can get ones that are the same height as a normal bed. So that's something I've done. I have 2 of those things, and I've used them in staging homes before. So it's just something to keep in mind. All right. I do appreciate you making the show part of your daily routine. You have no idea how much I value the fact that you are willing to spend the thing that is worth the most, your time, listening to the show. I do truly appreciate it. Thanks again for listening, everybody. I'll talk to you all next time.